On April 30th, 1980, 6 heavily armed gunmen walked into the heart of London and seized a critical piece of global geopolitics. Equipped with automatic weapons, they stormed the Iranian Embassy at 16 Prince's Gate, trapping 26 hostages inside a heavily fortified building. Their demands were absolute. Release 91 political prisoners held in Iranian jails, or they would execute a hostage every 30 minutes. For 6 days, police negotiators desperately managed to extend those deadlines, holding the crisis at bay while the world watched live on television. To the public, the British government appeared completely paralyzed. But behind the police lines, military strategists were quietly exploiting a critical structural vulnerability. By utilizing the adjacent buildings, technical teams had begun turning the embassy's own walls into a surveillance net. What the gunmen didn't know was that every move they made, every conversation, every footstep, was already being tracked from the building next door. This intelligence operation enabled a lightning counter-terrorist raid lasting just 17 minutes, with the critical fighting over in nearly 11. The 6 men were not improvised fanatics. They were trained members of the Democratic Revolutionary Front for the Liberation of Arabistan, a separatist militant group fighting for Arab autonomy in Iran's oil-rich Khuzestan province. Under Khomeini's new revolutionary government, the region had been crushed. Protests were bloodily suppressed. Ethnic Arab leaders were imprisoned. The men who walked into Prince's Gate believed they were waging a war of liberation the world had chosen to ignore. Their leader was Awn Ali Mohammed, known inside the group as Salim. 27 years old, former student of agriculture, now commanding a hostage operation in the most watched city on Earth. They had not arrived in London armed. The weapons, 3 Browning automatic pistols, 1.38 revolver, 2 Scorpion submachine guns, and a collection of fragmentation grenades, had been smuggled into Britain in diplomatic bags, routed through a sympathetic foreign intelligence service. The operation had been planned for months, the entry rehearsed, the timing deliberate. What they had not planned for was a lone police officer already inside the building when they entered. Constable Trevor Locke of the Metropolitan Police Diplomatic Protection Group was on routine security duty at the front door. When the gunman burst through, he had seconds to decide. Rather than draw his concealed weapon, almost certainly triggering an immediate massacre, he chose to comply. Hidden beneath his jacket remained his loaded .38 Smith & Wesson revolver, a weapon he would carry undetected for the entire 6-day siege. That decision, 1 officer, 1 hidden gun, 6 days of patience, would matter more than anyone outside the building could possibly know. The embassy's defensive layout remained a fortress, and with the media's cameras broadcasting everything live to the world, the tactical gamble was immense. But here's something most people don't realize about hostage negotiations. The goal is almost never to resolve the crisis at the table. The Metropolitan Police negotiating team worked against this from a deliberately narrow brief. Their job was not to solve the crisis, it was to extend it. Every hour of conversation was an hour the SAS used to prepare. Every concession dangled in front of Salim, a bus, a plane, a BBC broadcast, was a managed illusion designed to keep him talking. They exploited the telephone line as Salim's only connection to the outside world. They played to his ego. When the BBC initially refused to air his political statement, the negotiating team quietly applied pressure, not because they valued his message, but because a small win bought another day. Inside the embassy, the atmosphere was corroding. Hostages were split across floors by gender, allowed no contact with each other, and no information about the outside. Over 6 days, several of the most vulnerable, including a sick hostage and a pregnant woman, were released in exchange for minor concessions, a deliberate tactic to reduce the number of lives at risk inside. Those who remained endured sleep deprivation, hunger, and constant proximity to armed men with unpredictable temperaments. The gunmen were fracturing too. Arguments echoed through the walls as exhaustion and paranoia set in. Salim had entered the siege with a clear political objective. By day 4, that clarity was dissolving. His men disagreed about whether demands were still achievable, whether Britain was stalling, whether anyone outside was listening at all. The psychological clock was running out on both sides. But while the terrorists focused on the police lines outside, technicians in the evacuated buildings next door were mapping the interior. Working through the night with industrial drills, they bored holes into shared brick walls, stopping just millimeters before breaking the plaster on the embassy side. Ultra-sensitive microphones were dropped straight into the structural cavities. For the first time, the command team could map activity inside the building in real time. In a dark room down the street, operators tracked the gunmen's movements, isolated their positions, and identified the specific weapons they carried. The data fed continuously to the SAS squadron rehearsing miles away. A full-scale mock-up of the embassy's interior had been constructed. The SAS ran the assault repeatedly. Room entries, stairwell clearances, hostage extraction sequences, until the movements were automatic. They ran scenarios for every failure: a gunman near the hostages, a blocked staircase, a compromised entry point. The front doors were suicide. Strategists zeroed in on the back of the building instead. The rear windows were covered by a heavy architectural mesh that blocked visibility from the street, but that same density created a blind spot. Nobody inside could see movement flush against the exterior brickwork. The plan was set. A strike team would rappel from the roof, drop the rear wall, and catch the gunmen completely off guard. Everything was precisely in place. Then, within 90 seconds of the assault beginning, the entire plan collapsed. On May 5th, the 6th day, the standoff ruptured. Salim had reached his limit. His demands had not been met. His political statement had been broadcast in a diluted, barely visible form. He had given Britain 6 days. When the answer came back as another delay, he made a decision. The hostage he selected was Abbas Lavasani, the embassy's press attaché and a committed supporter of the Khomeini revolution, who had reportedly volunteered himself to the gunmen multiple times during the siege. A single gunshot echoed from inside the building. Minutes later, Lavasani's body was pushed out through the front door and left on the steps. The timeline for negotiation was over. The Prime Minister authorized immediate military intervention. At precisely 1923, the black-clad operators of the Special Air Service, the SAS, stepped over the roof ledge. As the first operator descended the rear wall, his boot smashed through a glass skylight. One sound. That was all it took. The evening quiet shattered. A guard turned immediately toward the noise. Then disaster compounded. His rappelling gear jammed. He was left dangling helplessly in midair, exposed directly in front of a window. Because he was trapped in the potential blast radius, the team could not safely detonate their explosive window charges. His team members frantically cleared the glass with sledgehammers while he hung there, exposed, live, on national television. Britain watched in real time as a soldier in black kit dangled from the rear of the Iranian Embassy while cameras rolled. The meticulously rehearsed plan had disintegrated within 90 seconds. With the element of surprise compromised, the team leader gave the order: force entry through every available point simultaneously. No phased approach, no hesitation. Explosions detonated across multiple facades. Frame charges blew the reinforced glass inward. Thick black smoke filled the rooms. Curtains and furniture ignited. Within minutes, the upper floors were burning as smoke poured from the windows, and the assault raged inside. SAS teams flooded the building from multiple entry zones simultaneously. The gunmen had prepared for a static police standoff, a negotiation, a war of words. They were entirely unprepared for a room-by-room clearing operation conducted at speed by operators using respirators, stun grenades, and Heckler & Koch MP5 submachine guns. In the back rooms, Salim realized the assault was underway and moved immediately toward the male hostages. He opened fire. One hostage was killed. 2 were wounded. Before he could clear the room, 2 operators breached the doorway and neutralized the threat in seconds. On another floor, a second gunman moved to detonate a grenade in the middle of the hostages. Constable Trevor Locke, the officer who had spent 6 days concealing his revolver through sheer discipline, finally drew his weapon and wrestled the man to the ground, holding him until SAS operators arrived. The instinct he had suppressed for 144 hours discharged in a single moment. Down on the ground floor, the remaining terrorists attempted to blend into the hostage group during the chaotic evacuation. As the crowd was led onto the rear lawn, operators systematically screened everyone passing through, checking hands for gunpowder residue, watching for behavioral tells, cross-referencing known descriptions. One by one, the infiltrators were identified and separated. From the breach of the first window to the securing of the final dynamic zone, 17 minutes. When the smoke finally cleared, the numbers told a stark story. 5 of the 6 gunmen were killed. 1 was captured. The youngest, identified during evacuation before operators reached him. Of the 26 people taken hostage at the start of the siege, several had been released during negotiations. 19 were rescued alive from the assault itself. 2 had been killed by the gunmen. Lavasani before the raid, 1 more during it. Operation Nimrod became one of the defining reference points for modern counter-terrorist doctrine. The footage would influence hostage rescue planning for decades, studied by special forces planners from Washington to Tel Aviv to Islamabad. The radicals had come to humiliate Britain on the global stage. Instead, they delivered the SAS its defining public moment and handed modern counterterrorism one of its most influential tactical blueprints, all captured live before a stunned global audience.